Alright, so for the second part of the chili here, I'm actually going to I'm going to be making the base of the sauce. The sauce will finish with the meat, but this is going to be a tomato-based sauce. But before I bring the tomatoes to the party, which are going to be canned tomatoes, I kind of want to prep the vegetables and cook them to a certain degree. And there's a reason for that. For instance, I'm going to cook the onions here to kind of brown them. They'll never achieve the same sort of caramely brownness that you'll get sautéing them as they are by themselves in just in hot oil as you would, say, just stewing them along with tomato. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dice real finely the onions here, rather, and then I'm also going to chop the celery and carrot. And as a combination, this is referred to as mirepoix in French cooking, and basically it's a pretty good combination it's just a really good flavor stock, and you can kind of build a lot of things on it. So we'll do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually work with these onions. Now I've prepped them a little bit already. What I've done is I've obviously removed all the kind of tougher outer skins, the dried skins. And what you'll see is I've chopped off the root end, and I've left a little bit of the root end there. So there's still a little bit there. And the reason I'm going to do that is because it actually holds all the leaves of this bulb together. This onion's a flower bulb. And so we want to leave that little bit there. We're actually not going to eat that. It's actually where that end of the onion contains a lot of the stuff that makes you cry. So we won't cut all that off, but it'll hold this together as we chop it. So the way I recommend doing this is you're going to make slices, and you're going to make some slices up. Now you don't want to cut all the way through. You're going to want to cut back, and then basically, depending on obviously where you were at in the onion, it depends on how far back you're going to want to cut. So I'll do this and kind of demonstrate what I mean. And then depending on how basically consistent you make or how close together rather you make your slices in the horizontal here will depend on will alter how thick your dice ends up being. So we'll make a couple of these, and again, you don't want to cut all the way through. You got to kind of leave. You want everything to stay connected in the back end there. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to make, again, not all the way through, but we're going to make some slices in this direction. And again, depending on how you make those slices is going to vary how thick your pieces end up being. Now, I'm going to do something later to basically puree the tomato sauce that I'm going to make with these. So the size to me is not super critical. If you don't do that, and there's no reason to do it other than just because I want to, and it's just purely a preference thing. It doesn't do a particular amount to the flavor, but it'll just be kind of a different mouthfeel. You can just basically want to chop these small enough that they're going to be something that it's not going to be a big hunk of onion in your mouth. So you're going to want to cut them about the size I'm cutting them here. So you can see then we're going to slice transverse to the other two cuts, and you can see they're coming off in basically little pieces. So you've got nice small pieces of onion. And so I'm going to finish up this onion. I'm going to do the same to this, and then we're going to throw those in the pan. Alright, so I've got a saucepan here. It's got some coconut oil heating up in the bottom. It's actually getting quite hot. I'm going to go ahead and put the onions in here, and we're going to caramelize the onions down, and it's going to be kind of a sweet flavor to a lot of the smoke that we've got over with the meat already and the spices in there. So we're going to go ahead and drop that in. If you're using clarified butter, this would be a really good use for it. I think it goes really well. That flavor profile goes really well with the onions. But I'm kind of doing a dairy-free thing right now, so I'm not doing clarified butter. But that just pairs with onion very well, I find. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this all in. Kind of hear it sizzle there a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave this uncovered just long enough to kind of get this stuff to wilt down. And it'll take a little while. You'll want to stir somewhat regularly, not constantly, but make sure that you don't burn anything. And then you'll let this cook down and also caramelize, and that'll bring just a lot of flavor. And if we did this with the tomato sauce or the tomato already in here, we would not get the same results. So this is important to do this kind of by itself, and that's actually why we make the effort. But it does seem like extra effort, but you get something out of it. So basically, we'll just kind of stir this, make sure everything's coated in the coconut oil, and go ahead and let this start to cook down. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is another little kind of just a culinary technique demonstration. Kind of talk about how to dice up items like this. It's what I'll show you is pretty applicable to just about anything of this general shape and size. So I'm going to be doing a pretty small dice, and but obviously you can, if you want to do something different, you do something different. So here we've got celery stalks and carrots, and we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So we'll do the carrots first here. Basically, you want to break these up into reasonable sized pieces. So I'm just going to cut this in two like this. Then you'll half it lengthwise, and you do need to be careful because obviously you're cutting something that's going to kind of want to roll. So do be cautious. So you'll slice that halfways, and then what I'll do is I'll basically take each half and cut it along its length into about 3 or 4 segments. And again, how finely you do this is going to result how small your pieces are. So, and if I were better at this, I would have gotten these in a little straighter, but it's close enough. So now that we've gotten kind of long strips, what we can go ahead and do is dice them with a knife. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sliding motion. I'm not going to do a chopping motion. You definitely don't want to whip. That's a good way to slice your fingers off. So we'll just kind of go through and do this just like this. And basically, the speed with which you roll down the item is going to kind of affect how big your pieces end up being. But you can see what size I got here. I'll do this again, and I'll kind of point out a little safety recommendation. So again, watch your fingers. You got a round object you're trying to cut there, so it does tend to want to roll around somewhat. If you're cutting the tips that are kind of tapered, it helps to kind of put them back to front, so they sort of match each other in width. When I'm cutting, I have my fingers curled up behind the blade. I don't have my fingers out. If you have your fingers out, it's a good way to catch the tip of your finger with the blade. So I keep my knuckles touching the back of the blade, and I keep my hands down like this, holding the food in place so it doesn't slide. And then I basically just continue this kind of motion along here. And so I'm holding the food down, and I'm kind of pushing back with the blade on my knuckles, but I keep my knuckles up high. Keep your fingertips out of the way because you will cut yourself. So take some caution, but do practice. It's kind of fun, and basically the same basic process is going to apply to the celery. You're going to slice it lengthwise, as thinly as you want, depending on what your final desired dice size is. I will say this: some people choose to basically take a veggie peeler like this and take off the kind of coarse backside, the greener side outside of the celery. There are those little tough fibers in there, and if you want to avoid those, you can actually just take a veggie peeler and slice that layer off. It actually is pretty good. It makes it a little bit more tender. It does little as far as I can tell to the flavor, so it's an option. I'm not doing it today, but that's just because I'm not in the mood for doing it. So once again, we'll just finish chopping up here, and we'll be soon dropping these with the onions. Alrighty, so now we have some good caramelized onions here, and you can see we got kind of some good brown color in there, and nice and soft. So what I'm going to do next is, without making too much of a racket for you here, is dump in the remainder of my goods here. So we got some carrots going in and celery going in. When I get those in there, I'm going to soften them a little bit, and then we'll be tossing in some diced tomatoes, diced canned tomatoes. I use a lot of tomatoes, just like them. Canned is easy. I do organic. I think that's kind of a way to go. One thing to note about canned tomatoes, this is just not a paleo angle or a nutrition quality angle, but rather just a flavor issue, is the fact that which ends up being canned tomato is usually stuff that's too soft to ship, which means it's actually too soft because it's actually ripe. So a lot of times the quality and the tomatoiness of canned tomatoes is superior to fresh tomatoes, because to get fresh tomatoes to the market without basically end up being a big pile of tomato sauce, they have to ship them while they're green, and they actually artificially make them red by the use of a gas. I believe it's ethylene gas. And so anyway, so we kind of mix this up, soften up the celery somewhat, the carrots will take far longer, and they'll actually do most of their softening in the when we mix this sauce back in with the meat. So we'll kind of let this go for a little bit, let the celery soften slightly, and then we'll add in the tomato, and we'll see you then. Alright, so now we've cooked this down a little bit. The celery is nice and soft. And something I should point out, I think a lot of people don't think of celery as being particularly flavorful, but when you cook it, you do get a lot of nice pungent aroma out of it. And that's why this the mirepoix is often referred to as aromatics. So, sorry, the obscuration there. So I've got 2 cans, 2 8-ounce cans of diced tomatoes, and you can see what I'm using here. Nothing special about these, just happen to be what Costco carries. And so this is with the juice. I haven't drained these at all. And so we're going to go ahead and pour all this in. Both 8-ounce cans. And then we'll stir this together. And again, we're just going to kind of let this heat through a little bit. And then we'll come back. And what I'm actually going to do is, I've got a stick blender. And I will go ahead and kind of puree this up. That is not a necessary step. I'm kind of just giving it a try because it's something I kind of like to do. You could use crushed tomatoes, which it's got a smaller, tomato size to it. But I like to just basically buy these, like the diced tomatoes, because I can use them for just about anything, and I can always kind of make them smaller. I can't make them any bigger though. So anyway, we're going to let this cook for a little while longer, and we'll come back to it. Okay. I'm going to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about with a stick blender. I'm not sure if everybody's seen one of these. Stick blender. Got a little blendery on this end. I got this one for free. I would not necessarily say it's totally worth going out and getting one unless you really love to geek out in the kitchen. If you do, it's really fun. Anyway, if you do it in hot liquids like I'm about to do here, be really freaking careful because this stuff can splash and it hurts. I won't lie, I splashed this stuff on myself pretty good before, and it really does burn. Also, make sure you don't when you're doing this, do not expose this. Try to keep the little holes there submerged. That way it keeps from splashing. And just take a lot of caution when doing hot liquids. It's not fun to get splashed by this stuff. So this is not going to record super well, so just because it's going to be very loud. But I'm going to go ahead and blend this up, and I'll show you the results. Okay, so you can see here kind of the results. In fact, if you were to see, there's a little bit of splash because I too got a little carried away there and brought that up and exposed it. So don't let that happen. Not only makes a mess, it can really kind of singe you. But you can see I haven't gotten it really super thin. There's still chunks of the smaller items like the celery and stuff, and that's cool. I just kind of want to break it down so it's not quite so chunky. So we're going to take this, and then we're actually going to let it join the meat over here, which has probably been going for about a half an hour while we worked on all this, and we're going to let the whole thing go for quite a while. Alright, so here's our meat that's been kind of simmering slightly for probably half an hour or so while we were working on the sauce. And you can see there's still a lot of liquid in there. That's cool. We're going to join all of this together, and which you need to be very careful of because basically you've got this nice big hot pot of sauce here. So don't go crazy. You can see it's pretty well pureed. There's probably a little couple bits and pieces in there, larger pieces, but no big deal. So we'll stir this together. Now the idea here is because we were dealing with pretty tougher cuts of meat. There's not steak pieces, there's stew pieces. We're going to want to mix all this together, and then we're going to let this simmer at a low temperature. I don't know what you call it here. It's about a 2 or a 3 out of 10 on mine. You want to make sure it is slightly simmering. You're seeing some bubbles coming up off the bottom. And basically we're going to let this reduce. So we're going to get rid of some of the moisture. That's going to kind of intensify the flavors, but it's also going to slowly cook the meat itself additionally and break it down a little bit and kind of tenderize it somewhat and break down some of the connective tissue, the tougher stuff inside there. So it'll be both tasty and a little bit more delicate in the mouth. So anyway, and here's the finished result. So you can see it's reduced quite a bit, gotten very thick. And you can see it's more like thick chili than just some sort of soup. So here we go. That was probably about 2 hours. And that's the finished product.